BL Short Story Collection. Sotdae, The Hunter's Weapon Connecting Heaven and Earth. Act 1. The Inherited Bride. 1. Legacy. My earliest memory did not begin with my father, nor did it start from my mother's embrace. When I first opened my eyes inside the freezing incubation fluid, the very first things I saw were an aging man, and beside him, a monster that maintained eternal youth. On the old man's left ring finger, a ring forged from the heart of a demon, the crimson light of Sotdae, stared back at me like a demon's eye. Doyen, look closely. My grandfather, or rather, my creator, Cha Yun-ho, tremblingly forced a jeweler's hammer into my small hand. This is not merely carving metal. You are carving that person's heart. Where his finger pointed, there sat that person on a low wooden bench in the workshop courtyard, amidst the fluttering flower petals. My master, the person who would become my owner, and the man my grandfather had loved all his life, but could never fully possess. Our Yun family workshop is a place that processes weapons for hunters, no weapons that define hunters. This hammer in my hand is nothing but a tool used to refine and maintain his left ring finger, he who is my hunter. Since birth, I was brainwashed to learn. My heart must beat for that man, and my hands exist solely to craft his ring. Around the time secondary sexual characteristics began and puberty hit, I realized another duty that had been bestowed upon me. When I dreamed of ravishing Han Saiwoo, who lay naked beneath me, moaning with a flushed face, I instinctively woke to a terrifying desire to inject my semen into him as if fueling an engine. At that moment, the ring that my grandfather, the aging creator, had slipped onto his finger resonated and spoke to me. If you desire the power of a demon descended from the heavens, you need a sacrifice massive enough to bind that demon to the earth. For now, your creator plays that role, but soon you must become mine. It was the voice of the demon. This ring was a bioweapon forged from the demon's flesh and human sacrifice. Therefore, it required fuel to operate. I was not merely the human Cha Doyen. I was a refillable battery and a standby groom, prepared solely for Hunter Han Saiwoo. Han Saiwoo was beautiful. Perhaps, since I was a clone of my grandfather, it was only natural and foreordained that I would view him sexually. I had never even questioned why I loved him. From the moment of my birth, my genes had already been imprinted to love him. Thus, while my grandfather was the one who brought me into existence, I secretly loathed him for looking at the person I loved with eyes of longing. To be precise, it wasn't pure hatred, but for my young self back then, there was no other way to explain the emotion than jealousy and resentment. For I didn't even dare to express the burning desire I harbored inside. 2. The beginning of jealousy. 24. The day I became the head of the clan. My grandfather died without leaving a single will. He simply closed his eyes with a smile, holding Saiwoo's hand. Saiwoo did not cry even at the funeral hall. He only stared blankly at my face. Yeono. He looked at me and called out my dead grandfather's name. At that moment, something hot and viscous snapped inside me. I slammed him against the wall. I grabbed him by the collar of his funeral suit and growled, "Wake up, Han Saiwoo. That old man is dead and rotting away. The one standing in front of you right now is me." Cha Yoi-un. Saiwoo's pupils shook. The image of me reflected in his eyes was identical to my grandfather's youth. Damn it, would I never escape this shadow for the rest of my life? But it didn't matter. If I could make him look at me, I would gladly become the substitute. And I will break him completely, until he calls nothing but my name. 3. The constraint of the ring. The secret chamber in the workshop basement. I slipped the old silver ring off Saiwoo's left ring finger. A piece of scrap metal that my grandfather had put on him 60 years ago. Its lifespan now long expired. It will hurt, but bear with it. Mine is going to be a bit rough. I pulled out the new Sotdae ring that I had crafted myself, set with a crimson gem. Saiwoo stared the ring with anxious eyes. If we change the ring, the thing inside me will reject it. This was the controller Yun-ho made for me. Don't worry, the engine embedded in your heart remains the same. It's just that the driver holding the wheel is changing. I took Saiwu's finger into my mouth. As my tongue licked up the joints of his ring finger, Saiwu's body flinched and trembled. Ugh, Doyen. Don't call me Yun-ho. I forced the ring down, whispering in his ear. I'll make the demon blood flowing inside your body remember. Your master is no longer Cha Yun-ho, but Cha Doyen. The click of the ring locking into place at the base of his finger. It was not the sound of a wedding ring, but of shackles that could never be removed. Saiwu looked up at me with eyes drenched in pain and pleasure. Now it begins. My extremely long newlywed life with my ageless bride. Act 2. The Sotdae devouring the monster. 1. A stage of a different class. 300 meters ahead. A horde of Du's Aini has breached the barricade. Team 3. Crank the output of Goblin Clubs, B-rank mass-produced, to maximum. Stop them. Gwangwaman Square, Seoul. A living hell was unfolding. Giant two-headed demons were tearing through the hunters' defensive line like wet paper. Hunters holding mass-produced weapons screamed as they were thrown back. Their armaments couldn't even scratch the demons' hides. I clicked my tongue, looking down at the mess from the helicopter. Pathetic. They call an iron rod smeared with goblin dung a weapon. I adjusted my in-ear microphone. My gaze was fixed not on the chaotic ground, but on a single point floating serenely above it. Can you hear me, Han Saiwu? Shut up.
I'm focusing.
The voice through the earpiece was languid. Even with hundreds dying below, he sounded bored. And with good reason. He was wearing the masterpiece I had created. I checked the sync rate graph on my tablet. The number was 88%. Not bad. Perhaps it was because of the rather intense maintenance we did last night. It was a level of performance that could never be achieved with the silver ring my grandfather had made. Show them how you and I are different from those trash. Upon my command, Saiwu, floating in midair, slowly raised his left hand. The crimson ring on his ring finger began to shine brighter than the sun. 2. Overwhelming slaughter. System. Codename Sotdae 02. Limiter released. The sound of Saiwu snapping his fingers pierced through the noise of the battlefield, striking my ears clearly. Instantly, the air above Gwangwaman warped. The blue light pouring from the ring transformed into a flock of hundreds of ducks of light. It was not magic. It was the demon's essence pouring from Saiwu's heart, which my ring converted into physical bullets. Sweep. A single gesture from Saiwu. That was enough. Whoosh. The birds of light rained down. The thick hides of the Duzaini were sliced through like tofu. The monsters that mass-produced hunters couldn't kill in 30 minutes exploded into pools of blood at Saiwu's single finger snap. Arg! The demons dissolved before they could even scream. The scene was less of a battle and more of an one-sided slaughter, an elegant performance. I felt a thrill. Yes, that is it. The picture my grandfather had spent his entire life wanting to paint. But my grandfather was wrong. It was not his craftsmanship that completed that beautiful weapon. It was the output made possible only because my maddening desire to possess that man was poured into it. Truly driving me crazy. On the screen, Saiwu floated above the blood-soaked battlefield, yawning as if bored. That arrogance, that overwhelming strength. I felt a heavy heat pooling in my lower abdomen. However, power always comes with a price. 3. The expiration date of a hero. Warning. User vital signs unstable. Demonization progression. 2%, 5%. Rising rapidly. The tablet screen flashed red. Right after unleashing that overwhelming power, Saiwu's body faltered. Descending from the air, he stumbled and fell to his knees. Dark feathers began to sprout from his back, and his fingernails elongated. The surrounding hunters shrank back in terror. Looking at the hero who had saved them just moments ago, they whispered, calling him a monster. Look at that. He's changing. Run. Don't get close. It's contagious. Fools. Who did Saiwu end up like that for? I barked at the helicopter pilot. Land. Now. 4. the antidote named human. As soon as the helicopter touched down, I ran toward Saiwu. He was huddled in a corner of an alley, shivering violently, the pain of demon venom surging backward through his veins. The curse only the first generation suffered. Ugh, Doyen. It hurts. It's burning. The moment Saiwu saw me, he clung to me. His golden eyes were unfocused. He did not recognize me right now. He was merely a beast smelling the pheromones and bodily fluids that would soothe him. I ripped off my tie and slammed him against the wall. I didn't care if the surrounding hunters were watching. This area was under my control anyway. Open your mouth. Here comes your medicine. I crashed my lips onto his without hesitation. It was not a simple kiss. I bit my own tongue to draw blood, feeding the blood down Saiwa's throat. A transfusion. Grounding initiated. Creator vital signs confirmed. Demon energy neutralization beginning. MMH. Saiwu tore at my collar as he devoured my lips. Metallic blood mixed with saliva. A wave of dizziness washed over me as my energy drained. But watching Saiwa's pupils slowly return to black gave me a strange sense of conquest. As if showing off. The great S-class hunter, the hero who tore through the skies. In the end, he was nothing but a doll who couldn't survive 10 minutes without my saliva. When our lips parted, Saiwu gasped for air and leaned against my shoulder. You're late, you bastard. Then who told you to use 100% output? Were you thinking of my grandfather again? I swept back Saiwa's sweat-drenched hair and smiled bitterly. The ring on Saiwa's finger responded to my touch, emitting a faint glow once more. Admit it already. The one keeping you alive is not that dead old man, but me. Act 3. Memories of Broken Wings. 1. The suicide dive inside the black box.
3 Uhr nachts.
The air in the workshop was cold and heavy. I stared blankly at a hologram playing in the corner of my workbench. State secret. Codename 0, the first demon hunt. On the screen, the F-35 fighter jet piloted by Han Saiwu 80 years ago tore through the sky with a scream. His opponent was a colossal flying demon named Fly 01, a desperate situation where neither missiles nor autocannons worked. Mayday, mayday, engine output dropping. Ejection failed. A static-laced radio transmission. It was the voice of Han Saiwu in his 20s. Unlike his current languid and weary voice, he was a desperate young man struggling to survive back then. Damn it, I can't die like this. The eye? That bastard's eye. The jet on screen pulled up sharply. Instead of pulling the ejection lever, he cranked the afterburner to maximum. It was not a flight. It was a suicide dive that turned himself into a giant bullet. Crash. The jet slammed into the demon's pupil, and a massive explosion engulfed the screen. That was how he succeeded in humanity's first demon hunt. And in exchange, he lost the nerves in both legs and his life as a normal human. Foolish man. I turned off the video I had watched thousands of times. He should have died back then. If he had died a hero, he wouldn't be suffering the pain of rotting away as a half-demon now. But my grandfather had saved him, slipping the shackle named Sotdae onto him. That shackle was cruel. My grandfather had created a weapon powered by a demon's heart, but he had never perfected the technology to allow a human body to fully absorb that massive power. Forced to take in the power without proper synchronization, Saiwa's body was slowly turning into a monster. It had become an irreversible curse that could no longer be separated. The state knew this but refused to let him go. They couldn't recreate a force like Saiwu. They forced him to use the demon's power until he died, and even after death. I turned my head to look at Saiwu lying on the bed in the back of the workshop. Pale face drenched in cold sweat. Feathers black as night sprouted hideously from his back outside the blanket. That man is no hero. He is merely a broken pilot suffering from a sickness where he dies if he cannot fly, ground down like a consumable by the massive system of the state. 2. The rotting god. I walked over to the bedside and pulled up a chair. Up close, Saiwa's condition was at its worst. He had drawn too much demonic power during the battle with the giant bird today. The veins in his neck bulged black, and a grotesque metallic wheeze came with every breath. The new ring I made was certainly more advanced than my grandfather's. It raised the output by using a more powerful demonic essence and improved control. Yet, the root problem remained unsolved. In the end, this man had to offer his humanity as collateral in exchange for borrowing the demon's power. Ugh! MMH. Saiwu tossed and turned, knitting his brows in pain. The silver Sotdae ring on his left ring finger was flashing frantically. The ring, too, was sharing its master's agony, screaming along with him. I picked up a wet towel and wiped Saiwu's forehead. The heat emitted by the demon's venom was beyond imagination. A searing heat that felt like it would burn on contact. I understand why young hunters these days fear Saiwu. They use safely refined, risk-free mass-produced weapons. To them, demons are merely prey. But Saiwu is different. He plants the demon inside his own body, walking the tightrope where he could become the prey at any moment. That razor-thin madness is what strikes terror into the hunters inside their safe fences.
Duyun. No. Iaunu.
Delirium leaked from Saiwu's mouth. I froze. That name again. The very person who dragged him into this hellish fate. And the only man he had ever loved. My grandfather. Wake up. That old man turned to dust. I retorted coldly, but Saiwu, as if he couldn't hear, grabbed my wrist tightly. His nails, grown long like a predator's, dug into my flesh. Blood welled up, but I did not pull my hand away. It's heavy. The wings are too heavy. Saiwu mumbled as if about to cry. It was not physical pain. It was the memory of the day all his comrades died except him. The guilt of surviving alone and having to borrow demonic power just to fly. And the apology directed at me, who had to take in his fluids every night just to keep him alive. All of that was the weight crushing his shoulders. 3. I will buy your guilt. Han Saiwu, I whispered softly in his ear. I know why you refused to cross the final line. Saiwu's eyelids trembled. He was afraid. He believed that the moment he slept with me, he would be betraying my grandfather. Or that his filthy demonic energy would eat away at my youth. My grandfather must have been the same. That old man regarded Saiwu as an incredibly noble being. A sanctuary. That's why he never dared to mix desire. He believed he must not defile a god with his dirty lust. Do you pity me? The one possessed by my grandfather's ghost. Spending my life cleaning up after you. I swept back his damp hair roughly. Don't flatter yourself. I'm by your side not because of my grandfather's will. It's simply because I want you. Doyen. Saiwu opened his eyes with difficulty. Slit golden pupils. Eyes that were not human. Yet, inside them lay a fear like that of a terrified child.
I'm scared.
I'll ruin you. Just like with Yun Ho. If I break, then I break. Besides, you know my durability is pretty tough, right? I let out a smirk, undoing my shirt buttons one by one. My grandfather had treated Saiwu as a god all his life, fearing he would shatter if touched. He only worshipped and cherished him. But that is not love. It is neglect. Gods are bound to be lonely. I can no longer stand watching him wither away alone on the altar. If so, I will gladly drag him down, turning him into a mate rolling in the mud. If that is the only way to save him, I'll show you how useless your guilt is, and how lonely the nobility my grandfather tried to protect has made you. For, just before blooming, I leaned over and covered Saiwa's lips as if to swallow them whole. If the previous grounding was a medical act for treatment, this was clear predation. MMH. Saiwu pushed my shoulders in protest, but his strength, lost to demonization, was weak. I swept his mouth with my tongue, pouring in my suppressed magical power. Saliva mixed, breaths tangled. Warning. Grounding level rising sharply. Risk of demon energy reflux. The warning alarm of the workshop rang, but I ignored it. I ripped open Saiwa's patient gown with both hands. His exposed naked body. Dark veins stretched like a map across his pale skin, and sharp feathers tore through the flesh of his back. soaked in blood. A monster's appearance that would make any normal person scream and run. Yet, in my eyes, even that looked agonizingly beautiful. Even these hideous feathers felt like medals of him enduring 80 years alone, making me want to kiss the wounds. Ha! Ha! Saiwu gasped for breath when our lips parted. His pupils shook. Now, he no longer saw me as grandfather's grandson. He saw me as the only male who could oppress him, and at the same time save him. Doyen, I can't take it anymore. I feel like I'm going to burst. Saiwu grabbed my waist with trembling hands. It was the limit. The demonic essence accumulated in his body was on the verge of exploding without an outlet. I am the only vessel in this world capable of receiving this. I whispered, biting his earlobe. Don't hold back. From here on, it's the real maintenance. I pushed myself between his legs. The place that had not been allowed to anyone for 60 years, which even my grandfather had left closed out of reverence. It was the moment the door of the taboo swung open.